Saasi as the mysterious black eggs. On a farm on the verge of closing its doors, an unexpected mystery emerged. The farmer found enigmatic black eggs and decided to care for them without knowing what might hatch. When they finally hatched, he couldn't hold back tears at what he saw. The fate of his farm changed forever with this surprising discovery. Before hearing this moving story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories. It was an autumn morning when Jack Peterson walked across his property, observing with tired eyes the vast expanse of land that his family had cultivated for 3 generations. Dew still covered the tall grass, and the rising sun painted the sky with orange hues when something unusual caught his attention. Scattered across the field, partially hidden among the vegetation, were several eggs of a deep, glossy black, as if they were made of polished obsidian. Jack, a man in his early 50s with graying hair and hands calloused from hard work, crouched down to better examine his discovery. The eggs were larger than those of ordinary chickens, with a smooth, uniform texture that reflected sunlight like a dark mirror. His heart raced as he counted 12 perfectly preserved eggs. Hope Farm, as the Peterson property was known, was going through difficult times. Production costs had skyrocketed in recent years, while conventional egg prices plummeted due to competition from large industrial producers. Jack spent sleepless nights, calculating again and again, trying to find a way to keep his family's legacy alive. Carefully, he gathered the mysterious eggs in his shirt, improvising a small bundle. His thoughts ran wild as he walked back to the main house. What if these eggs were from some rare species? Perhaps they would be valuable enough to give the farm a new lease on life. On the porch, he found his wife, Mary, a strong woman who faced adversities always with a smile on her face even when worries consumed her inside. Her eyes widened at the sight of what her husband was carrying. "Jack, what kind of eggs are those? I've never seen anything like them," exclaimed Mary, helping him place the eggs on the kitchen table. "I have no idea, Mary. I found them scattered near the creek." "Have you ever seen an egg like this or black this way?" he asked, still fascinated by the discovery. The couple spent the entire morning researching in old farming and poultry books they kept in the farm's small library. They also consulted some specialized websites on their cell phone, but the unstable internet in the rural area made it difficult to search for information. Nothing they found resembled those enigmatic eggs. It was Mary who suggested using the old incubator that was stored in the barn. The equipment had been used years ago when they tried to diversify production with quail, a project that ultimately didn't work out. Jack spent the rest of the day cleaning and adjusting the incubator, checking the temperature and humidity with extreme care. "Do you think I'm crazy, Mary? Investing time and energy in these eggs when we can barely keep normal production running?" asked Jack as he arranged the last egg in the incubator. Mary held her husband's hand firmly. "Jack, sometimes the greatest blessings come disguised as mysteries. Remember when your father found that abandoned brood of chicks? It was precisely that which saved the farm during the great drought of 1985. His wife's words brought a glimmer of hope to Jack's tired eyes. He smiled, remembering the stories his father told about how small miracles had saved Hope Farm in critical moments over the decades. In the days that followed, the couple established a rigorous routine of monitoring the eggs. Every 3 hours, Jack checked the temperature and humidity of the incubator, making minute adjustments when necessary. Mary kept a detailed diary of all observations, noting any change, no matter how small. News of the mysterious eggs soon spread throughout the E region. Some closer neighbors appeared to see the discovery with their own eyes. Some thought it was a waste of time. Others bet it would be something extraordinary. Old Sebastian, who had lived on the neighboring property for more than 60 years, swore he had never seen anything like it in his entire life. At night, sitting on the porch under a starry sky, Jack and Mary shared their dreams and fears. The farm was increasingly difficult to maintain. Debts accumulated, and traditional buyers were reducing their orders. Those mysterious eggs represented a last hope, a tenuous thread of possibility for change. "You know, Mary," said Jack, contemplating the horizon, "I have a different feeling about these eggs. It's as if they appeared exactly when we needed a miracle most." Mary squeezed her husband's hand in silence. She also felt that something special was about to happen, but preferred to keep her expectations guarded in her heart. Years of life in the country had taught her that nature has its own mysteries and its own time. The weeks began to pass, and anxiety increased with each day. Jack started sleeping in the small room next to the incubator, fearful that a power failure during the night could compromise the entire process. His body began to show signs of fatigue, but he refused to reduce his vigilance over the precious eggs. Mary worriedly observed her husband's increasingly deep, dark circles, the way he barely touched his food during meals, completely absorbed in his thoughts and calculations. She knew they needed to be patient, but she also feared that the obsession with the mysterious eggs could affect Jack's health. On a particularly cold night, as the wind whistled among the orchard trees, Jack thought he heard a different sound. Coming from the incubator, it was like a light scratching, almost imperceptible. His heart raced, but he controlled his anxiety. He had gone through false alarms before and didn't want to create premature expectations. Dawn arrived with a dense fog covering Hope Farm's fields. Jack woke up startled, realizing he had dozed off beside the incubator. His tired eyes quickly scanned the temperature and humidity gauges, making sure everything was within ideal parameters. As he rubbed his face to ward off sleep, Jack noticed something different. One of the eggs, the one closest to the incubator window, seemed to have a small crack in its surface. His heart instantly accelerated. Was it the beginning of hatching or just an imperfection in the shell he hadn't noticed before? With trembling hands, he took a small flashlight and carefully examined the egg. The crack was real, as thin as a hair but undeniably present. Jack took a deep breath, trying to calm the emotion that threatened to overwhelm him. He didn't want to create false hopes, but he also couldn't deny the excitement he felt. "Mary, Mary, come see this," he called, his voice echoing through the still, silent house. Mary appeared quickly, tying her robe as she ran to the incubator room. Seeing her husband's expression, a mixture of anxiety and hope, she immediately understood that something important had happened. "What is it, Jack? Is there a problem with the eggs?" she asked, approaching cautiously. Jack pointed to the egg with the crack, explaining his discovery. Mary leaned over to look more closely, her eyes widening as she confirmed what her husband had seen. "My God, Jack, do you think it's starting?" she asked, her voice barely containing her emotion. "I don't know, Mary. It could be, but it might. Also take a few more days. These eggs are a complete mystery to us," replied Jack, running his hand through his graying hair. The couple decided to maintain a constant vigil from that moment on. They took turns in 4-hour shifts, always alert. To any change in the eggs, Mary continued keeping the observation diary, now with even more detailed notes about each suspicious movement or sound. News of the possible hatching spread quickly through the community. Neighbors began to appear more frequently, bringing food and offering to help with farm chores, while the couple focused on the mysterious eggs. Hope Farm, which had long lived isolated in its difficulties, suddenly found itself at the center of attention in the region. Among the most frequent visitors was Mrs. Johnson, an 80-year-old woman known for her vast knowledge of herbs and poultry raising. She spent hours observing the eggs, murmuring to herself and asking questions that neither Jack nor Mary knew how to answer. "These eggs have a different energy," commented Mrs. Johnson one afternoon while having coffee on the porch with the couple. "I've seen many things in this life, but nothing like this. You need to be prepared for whatever comes out of them." The old woman's words sent a shiver down Jack's spine. He had already imagined 1,000 different scenarios, from exotic chicks to completely unknown creatures. Uncertainty consumed him, but at the same time fed a hope he hadn't felt in a long time. Meanwhile, the farm continued its daily routine, albeit with less efficiency. Jack delegated more tasks to the few employees he could still keep, spending most of his time near the incubator. Mary stretched herself thin between taking care of the house, helping with the eggs, and keeping the accounts up to date, increasingly concerned about the piles of bills accumulating on the desk. A week passed, since the appearance of the first crack, and other eggs began to show similar signs. Expectation grew with each hour, with Jack and Mary practically camping in the incubator room. Sleep was scarce and anxiety palpable. It was on a particularly cold dawn that the first egg finally began to truly break. Jack was dozing in a chair next to the incubator when a sharp sound woke him. He jumped up, almost knocking over the chair, and ran to call Mary. The couple watched, amazed, as a small fissure in the egg slowly expanded. From inside came weak but determined sounds, as if the creature was struggling to get out of its shell. Jack could barely breathe, his eyes fixed on the egg that was slowly opening. After what seemed like an eternity, but in reality was only a few minutes, a small black beak emerged from the shell. It was as dark as the egg itself, shiny and perfectly formed. Soon after, a little head covered with equally black down appeared, followed by a tiny, trembling body. "My God, Jack, is it a chicken?" asked Mary, her voice barely a whisper. Jack was speechless. The chick that had just been born was completely black, from its beak to its feet. Its eyes, when they finally opened, were an intense red, almost hypnotic. It was the strangest and most fascinating creature he had ever seen in his entire life. "I don't know, Mary. I've never seen a chicken like this. It's incredible," replied Jack, finally finding his voice. In the following hours, 3 more eggs hatched, each revealing a chick identical to the first. All were completely black, with bright red eyes and surprising energy for newborns. Jack and Mary could hardly believe what they were seeing. News of the births spread like wildfire through the community. Soon, Hope Farm was full of curious visitors, all wanting to get a peek at the mysterious black chicks. Jack had to improvise an isolated area in the barn to protect the fragile creatures from the tumult. Among the most interested visitors was Dr. Robert Anderson, a retired veterinarian who lived in the neighboring town. He examined the chicks with an experienced eye, making numerous notes and taking photos with his cell phone. "Jack, Mary, do you have any idea of the treasure you found?" asked Dr. Anderson, his eyes shining with excitement. "These aren't ordinary chicks. By their coloration and characteristics, I'd bet they're of the Ayam Cemani breed, one of the rarest and most valuable in the world." The couple exchanged looks of surprise and disbelief. Ayam Cemani, they had never heard of this breed. Dr. Anderson explained that it was a chicken originating from Indonesia, known for its totally black coloration, which went beyond the feathers, reaching even the internal organs and bones. These birds are extremely valuable in the exotic bird market. A single adult specimen can be worth thousands of dollars, continued the veterinarian, barely containing his enthusiasm. The revelation fell like a bomb on Jack and Mary. Suddenly, those mysterious eggs they had found by chance on their property could be the solution to all the farm's financial problems. It was almost hard to believe. In the days that followed, the remaining eggs also hatched, resulting in a total of 12 healthy and active chicks. Jack began to dedicate all his time to caring for the small birds, strictly following Dr. Anderson's guidance on appropriate feeding and management for the species. Mary, meanwhile, immersed herself in research about the Ayam Cemani breed. She discovered that besides their value in the exotic bird market, these chickens were considered symbols of good luck and prosperity in some cultures. She couldn't help but think that perhaps this discovery was more than a coincidence. Perhaps it was really a sign of change for Hope Farm. News of the rare black chicks began to spread beyond the local community. Journalists from specialized agribusiness portals got in touch, wanting to write articles about the incredible discovery. Exotic bird breeders from all over the country began to call, interested in buying future breeding stock. Jack and Mary found themselves at the center of an unexpected storm of attention and opportunities. It was exciting, but at the same time frightening. They knew they needed to act with caution so as not to put the promising future that was taking shape before them at risk. One night, sitting on the porch as they used to do, the couple contemplated the stars and reflected on the incredible turnaround in their lives. "Do you believe what's happening, Jack?" asked Mary, her voice laden with emotion. "A few weeks ago we were on the brink of despair, and now—" Jack held his wife's hand, his eyes shining with a mixture of gratitude and determination. "It's as if the farm were being reborn, Mary. Just like those chicks came out of the eggs. We're emerging from difficult times to a new beginning." The couple remained silent for a few moments, letting the magnitude of everything that was happening envelop them. The sound of the chicks, now accommodated in a specially prepared space in the barn, reached them like a soft melody of hope. "Tomorrow we have a lot of work ahead of us," Jack finally said. "We need to plan how we're going to deal with all this. How we're going to expand the breeding—" Mary nodded, a determined smile on her face. "We'll do this together as we've always done. Hope Farm will honor its name once again." As the couple retired to rest, the 12 black chicks slept peacefully, unaware of the impact their arrival had caused. Outside, the full moon bathed the farm's fields with its silvery light, as if blessing the new chapter beginning to be written in the history of the Peterson family. Dawn at Hope Farm brought with it a new energy. Jack and Mary, though tired from poorly, slept nights, felt revitalized by the hope that the black chicks had brought. The couple knew they had a long road of learning and adaptation ahead, but they were willing to face each challenge with determination. Early on, Jack headed to the barn where the 12 Ayam Cemani chicks were housed. Upon opening the door, he was greeted by a cacophony of animated peeps. The small creatures, completely black, ran from one side to the other, exploring their environment with tireless curiosity. "Good morning, little ones," murmured Jack, smiling at the birds' vivacity. He began the care routine, changing the water and providing the special feed recommended by Dr. Anderson. As he worked, Jack noticed something curious. One of the chicks, slightly larger than the others, seemed to have different down. Under certain light, its feathers exhibited a subtle bluish sheen, almost imperceptible but undeniably present. Intrigued, Jack carefully picked up the chick, examining it more closely. Well, what do we have here?" he murmured to himself. He decided to make a discreet marking on the animal's leg with a small ribbon bow to be able to monitor its development more attentively. Upon returning home, he found Mary in the kitchen preparing breakfast while talking on the phone. By the expression on her face, it seemed to be an important conversation. "Yes, I understand. No, we haven't made any decisions yet. Of course, we'll consider your proposal. Thank you for your interest," she was saying, making notes on a notepad. Upon hanging up, Mary let out a tired sigh but with a gleam of excitement in her eyes. "That was another breeder interested in our chicks, Jack, this time from Chicago. He offered an absurd amount just to have priority in buying when they grow up." Jack nodded, thoughtful. "We have to be careful, Mary. We can't let ourselves be carried away by excitement and make hasty decisions." I know, she agreed, "but it's hard not to get excited. Think of all we could do with that money. We could pay off the debts, modernize the farm." The couple spent breakfast discussing the various proposals they had received in recent days. Breeders from all over the country were interested in Hope Farm's Ayam Cemani, offering values that a few months ago would have seemed unimaginable. "I think we need professional help," concluded Jack. "How about scheduling a meeting with Charlie, the cooperative's accountant? He can guide us on the best financial and legal options." Mary agreed, and right after breakfast, made the call to schedule the meeting. Meanwhile, Jack returned to the barn for another round of care for the chicks. He took the opportunity to examine again the specimen with the bluish sheen, confirming that the unique characteristic persisted. In the afternoon, the couple received a visit from Dr. Anderson, who had been making regular checkups on the chicks. The veterinarian was impressed with the birds' development. "They're growing perfectly, Jack. You're doing an excellent job," praised Dr. Anderson as he carefully examined each chick. Jack took the opportunity to show the veterinarian the chick with the bluish sheen. "Doctor, I noticed something different about this one. Have you seen anything like this before?" Dr. Anderson examined the animal attentively, his eyes widening slightly. "Fascinating," he exclaimed. "This could be a rare mutation, Jack. If it persists as it grows, it could make it even more valuable." News of the possible mutation brought a new wave of excitement and concern for the couple. On one hand, it represented an even greater opportunity. On the other, It increased the pressure on them to make the right decisions. In the days that followed, Hope Farm found itself at the center of a real revolution. Journalists from major media outlets appeared almost daily, wanting to do stories on the miracle eggs and rare chicks. Jack and Mary took turns attending to the press, always cautious not to reveal details that could compromise the animals' security. The local community was also in an uproar. Neighbors who previously barely greeted the couple now appeared frequently, offering help and, not rarely, trying to obtain privileged information about the businesses that were to come. Amid all this turmoil, Jack and Mary tried to keep the farm's routine functioning. The ordinary chickens still needed to be fed, eggs collected, bills. It was a delicate balance between the old and the new, between current reality and future promises. A week after the discovery of the chick with the bluish sheen, the couple finally managed to meet with Charlie, the accountant. The meeting took place in the improvised office in the living room of the main house, with papers and spreadsheets scattered everywhere. "Well, Jack, Mary, I've analyzed the farm's current financial situation and projections based on the offers you've received," began Charlie, adjusting his glasses. "The potential is truly impressive, but we need to act with caution." The accountant spent the following hours explaining the fiscal and legal implications of different business scenarios. He talked about the possibility of creating a separate company to deal with the Ayam Cemani breeding, about strategies to reinvest profit in modernizing the farm, and about the importance of diversifying so as not to depend exclusively on the rare chicks. "Remember," warned Charlie, "the exotic bird market can be volatile. You have a unique opportunity, but you need to think long-term." At the end of the meeting, Jack and Mary's heads were spinning, but they felt more secure. They now had an initial action plan and the promise of continuous support from Charlie to navigate the financial aspects of the new venture. As the accountant was saying goodbye, ready to leave, a sudden commotion caught everyone's attention. Shouts coming from the direction of the barn made Jack run outside, fearing something had happened to the precious chicks. Upon arriving at the site, he found two of his employees arguing heatedly, while a third tried to separate them. The scene was chaotic, with buckets knocked over and feed scattered across the floor. "What's going on here?" thundered Jack, his voice cutting through the air like thunder. The men fell silent instantly, looking at their boss with a mixture of shame and apprehension. It was Joaquin, the oldest employee, who finally spoke. "Mr. Peterson, we caught Tim here trying to take pictures of the chicks to sell to a newspaper from the capital. Said they'd pay a fortune for the images." Jack felt his blood boil. Trust betrayed by one of his own employees was a hard blow. But before he could say anything, Mary appeared at his side, placing a hand on his shoulder in a silent gesture of support. "Tim," she said, her voice calm but firm, "I understand the temptation is great, but what you did is a serious violation of the trust we place in you. We can't keep employees who don't respect the integrity of our business." Jack nodded, grateful for his wife's intervention. "You're fired, Tim. Get your things and leave the property by the end of the day, and as for the rest of you," he continued, looking at the other employees, "I hope this serves as a lesson. Our family has always treated all of you with respect and trust. We expect the same in return." The incident served as a warning for the couple. They realized that, with the increase in the value and fame of their breeding, they would need to redouble their care with security and confidentiality. That night, after an exhausting day, Jack and Mary sat on the porch, as was their custom. Moonlight bathed Hope Farm's fields, creating an almost ethereal scenario. "Who would have thought, Mary," murmured Jack, his voice laden with emotion, "that those mysterious eggs would change our lives so much in such a short time?" Mary held her husband's hand, a soft smile on her lips. "It's true, it's as if fate had given us a second chance, but Jack, we have to remember that with great opportunities come great responsibilities." Jack nodded, thoughtful. "You're right. As always, we need to be cautious, protect what we've achieved. Not just for us, but for the entire community that depends on this farm." The couple remained silent for a few moments, contemplating the future opening before them. It was an uncertain path, full of promises and dangers, but they were determined to travel it together. In the nearby barn, The Ayam Cemani chicks slept peacefully, oblivious to the turmoil their existence had provoked. Among them, the specimen with the bluish sheen stood out subtly, like a silent reminder that sometimes the greatest blessings come in the most unexpected packages. As night advanced, Jack and Mary finally retired, exhausted but hopeful. Tomorrow would be another day of challenges and discoveries at Hope Farm, but now they would face each obstacle with renewed strength and determination. The following weeks brought a surprising transformation, not just for the Ayam Cemani chicks, but for all of Hope Farm. Jack and Mary found themselves immersed in a whirlwind of activities, balancing care for the rare birds and managing the growing attention they received. The chicks grew visibly, their black feathers gaining a silky sheen that fascinated everyone who saw them. The specimen with the subtle blue reflection, affectionately nicknamed Sapphire by Mary, continued to stand out among the others. Its development was closely monitored not just by the couple, but also by Dr. Anderson, who made regular visits to the farm. "It's truly extraordinary," commented the veterinarian during one of his visits, examining Sapphire attentively. "The mutation is becoming more evident as it grows. This could be a milestone in Ayam Cemani breeding." Jack listened with a mixture of pride and concern. Sapphire's potential was undeniable, but it also brought with it even greater responsibility. "Dr. Anderson, what does this mean for us in practical terms?" he asked. The veterinarian adjusted his glasses, thoughtful. "Well, Jack, you have in your hands not just a rare breed, but potentially a unique bloodline. This could open doors for genetic research, breed improvement. The possibilities are vast." Meanwhile, Mary was busy transforming one of the farm's old sheds into a suitable space to house the Ayam Cemani as they grew. With help from Joaquin and other trusted employees, she supervised the installation of modern climate control and monitoring equipment. "We need to ensure they have the best possible environment," Mary explained to the workers. "Every detail is important, from temperature to lighting." News about Sapphire's mutation didn't take long to spread, attracting even more attention to Hope Farm. Breeders from across the country, and even from abroad, began to make contact, interested not just in buying the Ayam Cemani, but in establishing partnerships for research and development. One afternoon, while reviewing the various proposals on their desk, Jack and Mary received an unexpected call. It was Lewis Hammond, a renowned researcher in avian genetics from Cornell University. "Mr. and Mrs. Peterson, I've heard about your extraordinary Ayam Cemani breeding, especially about the specimen with the color mutation," said the professor, his voice laden with enthusiasm. "I'd like to propose a research partnership. I believe we might be looking at a significant discovery for avian science." The couple exchanged looks of surprise and excitement. Professor Hammond's proposal opened a new horizon of possibilities they hadn't even considered. "We're honored by your interest, Professor," replied Jack, trying to maintain his composure. "But I confess this is a bit beyond our area of expertise. Could we schedule a meeting to better discuss the details?" After setting a date for Professor Hammond's visit, Jack and Mary allowed themselves a moment of celebration. The farm that once struggled to survive was now about to become a center for scientific research. However, not everything was rosy at Hope Farm. With the increase in fame and value of their breeding, security challenges also arose. Jack found himself obliged to hire guards to patrol the property 24 hours a day, preventing theft attempts or industrial espionage. One night, the couple was awakened by an alert from the newly installed security system. They rushed to the Ayam Cemani shed, fearing the worst. Upon arrival, they found the guards detaining a man who was trying to climb the fence. "He had long-range photography equipment," explained one of the security guards. "Seems he was trying to take unauthorized photos of the Ayam Cemani." Jack sighed, running his hand over his tired face. "Call the police," he ordered. "We need to make it clear that we don't tolerate this type of invasion." The incident served as a painful reminder of how their lives had changed. The farm, once a peaceful refuge, now seemed to be constantly under threat. Mary, sensing her husband's concern, suggested they hire a security consultant to review and improve their protection measures. "We need to stay one step ahead, Jack. We can't risk everything we've worked for." While dealing with these challenges, the couple never lost sight of the reason for it all, the Ayam Cemani. They spent hours every day in the shed, observing the birds' development, marveling at their unique beauty. Sapphire, in particular, continued to surprise them. His feathers, now fully developed, exhibited an even more pronounced bluish sheen, especially under sunlight. The rooster, for Sapphire turned out to be male, had a majestic bearing with a comb and wattles of a deep black that beautifully contrasted with the sheen of his feathers. "It's as if he were made of precious stones," commented Mary one afternoon as she watched Sapphire strut among the other birds. Jack nodded, a proud smile on his face. "He is truly special, but all of them are, each in their own way." As the Ayam Cemani approached maturity, Jack and Mary began to plan the future of their breeding. With guidance from Charlie the accountant, they established a separate company to manage the Ayam Cemani business, thus protecting the original farm's assets. "We need to think long-term," explained Charlie during one of their meetings. "The goal is to create a sustainable operation, not just capitalize on immediate interest." The couple agreed, deciding to reinvest a large part of the initial profits in improving the farm's infrastructure and careful expansion of their Ayam Cemani breeding. Professor Hammond's visit, a few weeks later, marked another turning point for Hope Farm. The researcher was impressed not just with Sapphire, but with the entire operation that Jack and Mary had set up. "You've created something truly special here," commented the professor, while examining the meticulous records Mary kept on each bird. "The combination of traditional care with modern technology is impressive." After lengthy discussions, they reached an agreement for a research partnership. Cornell University would establish a small laboratory on the farm, allowing researchers to study the Ayam Cemani in situ, without the need to remove the birds from their environment. "This will allow us to study not just the genetics, but also the behavior and development of these extraordinary birds," explained Professor Hammond, his enthusiasm contagious. For Jack and Mary, the partnership represented more than just a business opportunity. It was a chance to contribute to the advancement of scientific knowledge, something they had never imagined possible on their small farm. With all these changes, the couple realized they needed to expand their team. Besides the traditional farm employees, they now had a small team dedicated exclusively to the Ayam Cemani, specialized veterinarians, laboratory technicians, and even a marketing manager to handle the growing media interest. One afternoon, while supervising the installation of the new laboratory, Jack and Mary had a moment of reflection. "Did you imagine we would come so far when you found those eggs, Jack?" asked Mary, a gleam of admiration in her eyes. Jack smiled, embracing his wife by the shoulders. "Not even in my wildest dreams, Mary. Sometimes I still have to pinch myself to believe all this is real." The couple observed the movement on the farm. Researchers coming and going, employees caring for the birds, the constant buzz of activity that now characterized Hope Farm. It was a stark contrast to the silent and worrying days of just a few months ago. "You know what impresses for me most," continued Jack thoughtfully, "how this has changed not just our lives, but that of the entire community. See how many jobs we've created, how much knowledge is being generated here." Mary nodded, moved. "It's true. It's as if those black eggs had brought new life, not just to the farm, but to the entire region." As they talked, Sapphire, the rooster, that had become the symbol of their extraordinary journey, crowed in the distance. His song, deep and resonant, seemed to echo the transformation that Hope Farm had undergone. Jack and Mary exchanged a look of mutual understanding. They knew there was still much work ahead, many challenges to face, but now looking to the future they saw not just hope, but a concrete promise of prosperity and fulfillment. As the sun set on the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and purple, the couple walked hand in hand back to the main house. Hope Farm, once on the brink of failure, now pulsed with new life and infinite possibilities. And in the specially designed shed, the Ayam Cemani, with their gleaming black feathers, rested peacefully, unaware of the impact their arrival had caused. They were more than just rare birds. They were a symbol of rebirth, a reminder that sometimes the greatest blessings come in the most unexpected packages. Dawn at Hope Farm brought with it a now familiar but still exciting routine. Jack woke to the distinctive crow of Sapphire, the blue-feathered Ayam Cemani rooster that had become the symbol of revolution in their lives. Beside him, Mary was already stirring, preparing for another day filled with activities. "Good morning, dear," murmured Jack, gently kissing his wife's forehead. "Ready for another day of adventures?" Mary smiled, her eyes shining with a mixture of enthusiasm and determination. "Always, Jack. Each day here is a new discovery." The couple got up, and, after a quick breakfast, headed to the newly built complex where the Ayam Cemani were bred and studied. The place, a harmonious mixture of modern sheds and research laboratories, buzzed with activity even in the early hours of the morning. As they entered the main shed, they were greeted by Dr. Carrie Mitchell, the head veterinarian they had hired, to supervise the birds' health. "Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. Peterson," greeted Carrie, her normally serene face marked by a concerned expression. "We have a situation that requires your immediate attention." Jack and Mary exchanged apprehensive glances. "What happened, Dr. Carrie?" asked Jack, feeling a knot form in his stomach. Carrie led them to an isolated area of the shed. "It's the most recent batch of chicks," she explained, pointing to a group of small black birds. "They're showing signs of a disease we can't identify. Weakness, loss, of appetite, and some have even developed whitish spots on their feathers." Mary approached, examining the chicks with worried eyes. "My God, they look so fragile. What can we do?" "We're running tests, but so far we haven't been able to identify the cause," replied Carrie. "Professor Hammond and his team are also involved, analyzing whether it could be something genetic or a new pathogen." The news fell like a bomb on Jack and Mary. After months of success and growth, they were now facing a threat that could compromise all the work they had built. "We need to isolate this batch immediately," decided Jack, his voice firm despite the evident concern, "and double the biosecurity measures throughout the farm." Mary nodded, already formulating an action plan in her mind. "I'll get in touch with other Ayam Cemani breeders. Maybe someone has faced something similar." The days that followed were tense and exhausting. Jack and Mary barely slept, dividing their time between caring for the sick chicks, coordinating research, and keeping the rest of the operation running. Professor Hammond and his team worked tirelessly in the laboratory, analyzing samples and conducting genetic tests. "It could be an unforeseen mutation," he explained during a meeting. "The DNA of the Ayam Cemani is unique, and there's still much we don't understand about its genetic peculiarities." Meanwhile, news of the mysterious disease began to spread, despite the couple's efforts to keep the situation under control. Rumors and speculations ran rampant, threatening to tarnish the reputation they had built with such effort. One afternoon, while Mary coordinated a video conference with international experts in avian diseases, Jack received a concerning call. "Mr. Peterson," said the voice on the other end of the line, "this is Richard Baker from the American Association of Exotic Bird Breeders. We're receiving alarming reports about a disease in your Ayam Cemani breeding. We need immediate clarification." Jack felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He knew that how they handled this crisis could define the future not just of their farm, but potentially of all Ayam Cemani breeding in the United States. "Mr. Baker," he replied, keeping his voice calm, "I appreciate your concern. We are facing a challenge, it's true, but we're taking all necessary measures to protect our birds and those of other breeders. I'd like to invite you for a visit to the farm so you can see for yourself the protocols we've implemented." The visit was scheduled for the following week, giving Jack and Mary precious time to prepare. They worked day and night, documenting each step of their actions, from the initial isolation to the most recent discoveries of the research team. On the day of the visit, Hope Farm was impeccable. Jack and Mary received Mr. Baker and his team with a mixture of professionalism and transparency that impressed the visitors. "As you can see," explained Mary as she guided the group through the complex, We've implemented hospital-level biosecurity measures. Each sector is isolated, and we have rigorous protocols for movement of personnel and equipment. Mr. Baker observed everything with attentive eyes, asking detailed questions about procedures and ongoing research. By the end of the visit, his countenance had changed from concern to admiration. "Mr. and Mrs. Peterson," he said, "I must congratulate you on how you're handling this situation. Your approach not only protects your birds, but sets a new standard for the entire industry." The compliment brought momentary relief to the couple, but they knew the challenge was far from over. The sick chicks were still struggling to survive, and the cause of the disease remained a mystery. It was Sapphire, the blue-feathered rooster, who inadvertently provided the crucial clue. During a routine examination, Dr. Carey noticed that, despite having close contact with the sick chicks, Sapphire remained healthy. "It's as if he were immune," commented Carey, intrigued. "Perhaps the mutation that causes his unique coloration also confers some type of resistance." This observation triggered a new line of research. Professor Hammond and his team began to intensively study Sapphire's DNA, comparing it with that of the affected chicks. Days of meticulous analysis finally yielded fruit. "We found it," exclaimed the professor, bursting into Jack and Mary's office one night. "Sapphire's mutation not only affects his color, but also strengthens his immune system. And most importantly, we discovered how to replicate this effect in other Ayam Cemani." The discovery was a turning point. With the acquired knowledge, the team developed a treatment that not only cured the sick chicks, but also promised to make future generations of Ayam Cemani more resistant to diseases. Jack and Mary could hardly believe the turnaround. What had begun as a potential catastrophe had transformed into a significant scientific advancement. "It's amazing, Jack," said Mary, hugging her husband, as they watched the recovered chicks run around the shed. "Somehow, facing this challenge has made us even stronger." Jack nodded, moved. "It's true, Mary. And to think that all this began with those mysterious eggs we found in the field." The story of the Ayam Cemani crisis and its surprising resolution soon spread, attracting even more attention to Hope Farm. Journalists, researchers, and breeders from around the world wanted to meet the miraculous black roosters and the couple who had transformed a struggling farm into a center for scientific innovation. With the crisis overcome and new perspectives opening up, Jack and Mary decided it was time to take the next step. They organized an international symposium on rare bird breeding and research, with Hope Farm as the host. The event was a resounding success. Experts from various countries gathered to share knowledge, establish partnerships, and get to know the extraordinary Ayam Cemani breeding at the farm up close. During the closing speech, Jack surprised everyone with an exciting announcement. "It is with great joy that we announce the creation of the Ayam Cemani Foundation for Avian Research," he declared, with Mary by his side. "This non-profit institution will be dedicated to advancing knowledge about rare birds and promoting sustainable breeding practices." The announcement was received with enthusiastic applause. Hope Farm, which months before struggled to survive, now established itself as a beacon of innovation and knowledge in the world of poultry. That night, after the departure of the last guest, Jack and Mary walked hand in hand through the farm's fields, reaching the spot where, not so long ago, they had found the mysterious black eggs. "Who would have thought, Mary," reflected Jack, looking at the stars, "that those eggs would change our lives in so many ways?" Mary smiled, squeezing her husband's hand. "It's as if the universe had given us exactly what we needed, at just the right time." The couple remained silent for a few moments, absorbing the magnitude of all they had lived through and achieved. In the distance, Sapphire's unmistakable crow echoed through the night, as if the rooster were celebrating along with them. "What do you think the future holds for us, Jack?" asked Mary, her voice mixing curiosity and expectation. Jack smiled, pulling his wife closer. "I don't know, my love, but if it's as extraordinary as what we've already experienced, I can hardly wait to find out." As they walked back home, the couple knew that no matter what destiny had in store for them, they would face it together, with the same courage and determination that had brought them this far. Hope Farm, once on the brink of failure, was now a symbol of rebirth and infinite possibilities, all thanks to a handful of mysterious black eggs found on an ordinary morning. The rising sun cast its first rays upon Hope Farm, revealing a property very different from the one of a year ago. Where once there were declining fields and worn structures, now stood modern sheds, research laboratories, and a small village for researchers and employees. The transformation was so impressive that sometimes Jack and Mary had to pinch themselves to believe they weren't dreaming. That morning, the couple woke early, excited about the prospects of the day ahead. The Ayam Tsemani Foundation for Avian Research, created after overcoming the mysterious disease that had threatened their flock, was about to launch its first major project. "Are you nervous, Mary?" asked Jack, as they had coffee on the porch of the main house, observing the already intense movement in the surroundings. Mary smiled, her eyes shining with a mixture of anxiety and enthusiasm. "A little," she admitted. "But more than that, I'm excited. To think that our small farm is now at the forefront of global avian research, it's almost surreal."